They're in our phones, our electric cars, our satellites, and even our refrigerators. Semiconductors, invented in the United States. But now only about 12% of chips are made in America.
American manufacturing is back.
Through his CHIPS and Science Act, President Joe Biden campaigned this week with $6 billion in federal grants for Micron's new plants in New York and Idaho. Added to Micron's own $125 billion, Biden says it's the biggest private investment ever in the two states.
Folks, my predecessor and his MAGA Republican friends have a very different view. They oppose the CHIPS and Science Act that's powering this growth today. We got to stop this division. I promise to be president for all of America, whether you voted for me or not. Today's investment helps Americans everywhere.
During his presidential term, Donald Trump had Intel's then CEO announce the company's $7 billion chip project from the Oval Office.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this.
But there was no government money backing the project. Subsidizing semiconductor companies is a fairly new policy, and experts say it's where the two presidential candidates differ.
You know, in 2015, if you'd asked most Americans, if you'd asked the Obama administration, do we need a CHIPS policy? They would have said, no, everything's fine. What are you worried about? So this has only been recently, and the Trump administration changed our views towards China. This administration, though, has been the one that's been able to actually carry out some useful plans.
Trump, as president, handled China's threat in a different way. He used tariffs.
We've taxed China on $300 billion worth of goods and products being sold into our country, and China eats it.
$50 billion of that was on high-tech items. More recently on the campaign trail, candidate Trump on what he would do in a second term.
I will revoke China's most favored nation's trade status.
Since it was introduced, Biden's Chip and Science Act has triggered 83 projects to eventually increase the U.S. share of semiconductor manufacturing. Lewis says should Trump be reelected, he would need to implement a Chips and Science Act Part 2 to continue those efforts. Carolyn, Presutti, VOA News.